Hi, and welcome to Made with Carlenergy. This is episode 2. I'm Carlene, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Carlenergy, and show notes for the podcast are at carlenergy.blogspot.com. I'm a knitter and spinner in the Hudson Valley of New York, and I really appreciate you coming by to check out what I've been working on. In this episode, I have a recent trip to Purl Soho that I took this past week to talk about. I don't have any finished objects, but I do have some updates on works in progress, and I do have some stash enhancement, and some upcoming events, and some shoutouts. So, yes, I will begin with my trip to Purl Soho this past Wednesday. I took the train, which is the Metro North Harlem Valley line, and it takes about 2 hours to get to Grand Central, so it's plenty of knitting time. And I love that train ride. It's some nice scenery and plenty of time to get some sock knitting done. And so I met up with Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast at Purl Soho, and her friend Allison she also recently started working at Purl Soho, so I met Allison, and the three of us just hung out and talked about knitting and spinning and sewing, and Kristen and I pretty much, I think, touched every skein of yarn in the whole place, and yeah, it was really nice. We also tried on the cashmere wraps. So the purlbee.com, which is Purl Soho's blog where they post a lot of free patterns, they have this ombre wrap kit dyed by Jade Sapphire yarns, and it is just stunning. It's gorgeous. It's so luxurious. So luxurious, in fact, that Purl Soho keeps the wrap in a glass case on the on the front table as you walk in. So it's this very opulent piece, and it was really nice to try on. As you can imagine, there's a pretty steep price tag on the kit, but if I'm ever feeling really fancy, that might be in my future. But it was really gorgeous and really fun to try on. And if you follow Kristen or me on Instagram, you can see the photos of us just really enjoying the wrap experience. And so I had 2 skeins of Koigu in my hand, 2 skeins of their sock yarn, pretty much the whole time walking around the store thinking that that's what I was going to purchase that day. And then as you'll see in my stash update, I changed my mind at the last minute and came home with some other things, but poor Koigu. And Kristen and Allison and I were talking about this, how Koigu doesn't have colorway names. They just have a number for the colorways, and the colorways are gorgeous. I mean, it's beautiful yarn. They have great speckled yarn, really pretty colors and color combinations, but they don't give any special name to the colorway, and that can really be what pushes me over the edge into buying a yarn, is if it has if it's obviously a beautiful color plus has a really lovely name attached to it. So, I mean, hey, if Koigu is looking for a person to name their colorways, I will sign up for that job. No questions asked. But anyway, so that was a really nice afternoon, and I was really glad to meet up with Kristen. And Kristen, thank you so much for mentioning me on your last episode. If you watch Yarngasm, then you've already heard about our Purl Soho trip. And thank you so much, Kristen, for mentioning my podcast. And yeah, thank you so much for all the lovely things that you said about it. And yes, I want to thank everyone who watched my first episode and has subscribed. And it's just really exciting. And yeah, I'm hoping to stick with it, and yeah, it's just really exciting. Thank you for everyone who's commented, and I look forward to being in touch even more. Moving on to works in progress. I did knit on my Patton's Croix sock. These are really turning into my transportation socks. Last episode I talked about how I was stuck in just, standstill traffic last week, and so I was knitting while I was stuck, with my car in park on the road, and then I got a lot done on the train ride to and from the city. So my transportation socks. This is Patton's Croix socks in the gray-brown marl stripes colorway, and these will be for a guy in my family, as yet undetermined, either my brother or my dad or my uncle. They all kind of have the same size foot, so not sure who they're going to yet, but they will be a Christmas gift. And so in my first episode I had finished about half of the heel flap, and then on the train ride to the city I got the heel flap done and turned the heel, picked up the gusset stitches, and then on the ride back to Dover Plains I got some of the foot done. So still really enjoying these, and they're coming along nicely. And these are US 1.5 Knit Picks wooden double pointed needles, and yeah, good progress on that. And I realized in my first episode I didn't talk about my project bags at all. For the past couple months I've just been keeping my sock projects in this nice simple cotton bag from Gauge Intention, which is Michelle Wong's pop-up store, pop-up yarn shop in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And back when she first opened in October, she gave out some goodie bags to her first customers type of thing. So this was part of the goodie bag, and so they did these cute screen printed bags with their logo, and I have a little alpaca pin in there. Sorry about my phone, let me turn that on silent. So yeah, I like this bag. It's nice and simple to throw into my purse, and yeah, reminds me of Gauge Intention, which I love. So next is my Bellows cardigan, which I got a lot finished on. So this pattern is by Michelle Wong, and I think this was in the Brooklyn Tweed Fall 2014 collection. I fell in love with the pattern as soon as it came out, and I'm really excited to be working on it. Just a really lovely, roomy, cozy, bulky, fisherman style cardigan. And last episode I had one sleeve done, and now I have the second sleeve finished. And I have the left front finished. So here's my armhole, and then there's some decreases, which later there will be a button band to be picked up and a shawl collar. And the exciting and nerve-wracking thing about the progress on this sweater is that I've decided to try to add side seam pockets. So that's what this weird little tab is on the side. And so I'm following instructions for a side seam pocket from Deborah Newton's Finishing School. I bought this book a few months ago on Amazon and haven't really looked through it at all. So this is the first technique that I'm trying from this book. But just flipping through it, it is a really interesting book with lots of very interesting little techniques and embroidery ideas and things like that. And if you're familiar with Elizabeth Zimmerman's books and how she kind of writes patterns out more in a paragraph style, kind of telling a story of a pattern versus, just very concrete listed instructions, that's kind of the style of this book too. You can kind of tell there's a lot of just written instruction without too much row by row type of instruction, if you know what I mean. So I am a little confused about what happens once I seam the sweater with these pocket facings, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to all kind of come together. The only thing I'm concerned about with this, and I'm going to try to demonstrate it, so I have a little bit of the second front piece done, and the only thing I'm worried about is that the pocket might end up a little bulky because there's going to be these pocket facings on the back of the sweater as well, and then if you imagine that this is the back and then the front, this is what the pocket will look like. So these are just the pocket facings, and then when it's all seamed together, I'll have to pick up along the edges of the two facings and then knit the pocket. And I think I'm going to do that in a lighter weight yarn on smaller needles, definitely, so that it's not as bulky. But so that's what the facings will look like from, you know, the outside of the sweater. And I think it does add a little bit of bulk, but I'm not too worried about it. I think since it is a big, very cozy style of cardigan, I don't think it'll be too bad. So yeah, this is my first time trying to add pockets to anything. And yeah, I almost went without doing it because I was a little intimidated, but I know that if I make this sweater without the pockets, I'm always just going to be trying to shove my hands into pockets that don't exist. So yeah, hopefully that works out. And if not, hopefully I can knit it up again if I have to rip it out. It is going really fast with these nice chunky needles. So yeah, I think it'll work. I have faith. So that's all my progress on that one, and I've been keeping that all in my, this is a Lantern Moon project bag. I think they've discontinued these, but yes, Lantern Moon. It's a really lovely, well-made bag, and I was nervous at first when I bought it because these are all pockets on the sides, and I thought maybe stuff would fall out of them, but yeah, they're actually nice and secure, and it's not like I turn it upside down a lot anyway. But it's just really a lovely bag. I think that's it for that project. So moving on to my spinning project, which I did show last episode, spinning / knitting, since I've already started a scarf with this yarn. This bag is cool, with this clear bottom. So this is by, it's called Fibers Entwined. I can't see the label. Yeah, it's getting washed out, but Fibers Entwined, and there is a website, fibersentwined.com, but I don't think you can purchase the bags from the website, but she does have a email address on her label, fibersentwined@yahoo.com. I've only ever seen these bags in my local yarn shop, which is Black Sheep Yarns, but I really like this style because, you know, obviously it's great to be able to see everything in the bag. So it's really pretty fabric and nice and well made, and yeah. So this is the Fringe with Benefits scarf by Mindy Ross, and I haven't knit anything more on it, but I will show it again just in case. So it's got this cool knitted fringe, and it's this nice asymmetrical shape. And so I ran out of yarn on this. This was a full loop bump that I spun at a fingering to sport weight, and I've been working on spinning a second loop bump to finish the scarf. So I'm not going to apologize for crinkling, because you know what, with crinkling, I always kind of like it in podcasts because it gets me kind of just as excited as if, you know, I have a new crinkly stash enhancement, so there will be crinkling, and it's just how it goes. So yes, this bump has some similar colors as the first one I used, so yeah, there's two different versions of the pattern. There's a shorter one, and then she gives instructions to make it, to extend it into a longer version. And originally I was just going to do the shorter version because I wasn't sure how much yarn I was going to get, but I've already run out anyway, so I might end up spinning this entire bump and then just seeing how long I can make the scarf, and I'll just do the longer version. And I did get a good chunk of spinning done this weekend, or this past week and weekend. I haven't been spinning consistently for a couple weeks now. I just haven't been picking it up because I've had so many knitting projects that have taken my attention. But yeah, the past few days I've just been really getting back into it, and it's been really nice. So this is another loop bump with some bits and pieces of other fibers that I'm spinning in, because the first bump that I used for the scarf does have pieces of recycled sari silk in it, and I wanted to keep with that same look. So that's why I have all these tweedy bits of other colors. And I am plying on the fly. I forgot to mention that on my first episode, but plying on the fly at a fingering to sport weight, and I do really like this technique. It does feel a little bit slower than just making your singles first and then plying afterwards, but I like that I have a good idea of what the finished yarn is going to be. And there's about 1.5 ounces of fiber spun up onto the spindle so far, so I think I might unwind it onto my Niddy Noddy soon and wash it and start adding it to my scarf, and then spin some more. I want to see how much this gets me as far as like extending the scarf from where it is. So yeah, very happy with that. And oh, I almost forgot a project. So I do have another knitting work in progress. I started this thing about 5 years ago. It is a sock yarn blanket, and it's kind of pathetic because it's still barely a scarf, but it is about as wide as a full-size bed at this point, so I'm pretty satisfied with the width of it, and now I'm just trying to build up the length, obviously. And yes, pretty embarrassed about the backside. Obviously I'm being lazy about the ends, which I think is kind of what keeps me from working on it consistently, because every time I pick it up it's just like, ends. And I tried to make a pact with myself that I would knit, I would weave in 5 ends before adding another square, but obviously it's more fun to add more squares than weave in ends, so yeah. But I did just knit another square on while I was watching the Kilt Craft podcast with Vanessa. I was watching that right before I started recording. And Vanessa, thank you for leaving a comment on my first episode. So while I was watching her, I added this square, which is Madeline Tosh Merino Light, and this is the Flash Dance colorway, and it was, I had a little tiny bit of leftover from the Lumpy Space shawl that I just completed and showed in my first episode. So yeah, that was nice to work on. And this square is funny because it's kind of a little bigger and bulkier than most of the other ones, but this was my leftover hand spun from my D-Spackle shawl. That it was a drop spindle knit along hosted by Kristen of Yarngasm earlier this year, and so that's my leftovers from that project. And it is a little, it kind of looks funny now, but I think once this whole thing is done and blocked, it won't be too noticeable, and it's my hand spun, so it should kind of stick out. Yeah, and all these are yarns that I've used for my own projects. I haven't really done any mini skein swaps, but definitely interested in doing some swaps. That would be fun. So that's that. And I think that brings me to stash. Oh, so the first thing is I did actually buy buttons today for my Bellows cardigan. I bought them from Black Sheep Yarns, which is my local yarn shop. It's in Kent, Connecticut, and it's just a really amazing shop. On Sundays, well, actually every day, Nancy, the owner, has open knitting, so you can just come and work on projects, and she gives help and advice for free. And on Sundays, there's a big group that meets up and knits there. So, you know, I went and hung out there for a little while today and bought some buttons for my Bellows cardigan. So this is what the buttons look like. It's this wood with some silver and stone inlay, and this is how I'm going to sew them on at the diagonal like that. And let's see, so there will be a button band, a ribbed button band around the neckline. So just pretend that this is the ribbed button band, and then so the buttons will be like that. And what I like about these buttons is the stone kind of mimics the marled look of the yarn. So this is 2 strands of BT shelter held together. I forgot to mention that. It's the blanket for it colorway is the darker lavender purple, and then the postcard colorway, which is a light pink. And they both have flecks of red and blue and black tweed in them. So yeah, I think that'll be nice. I had a bunch of the ladies kind of helping me with my button choice. We were trying mother of pearl and some other wooden ones, but these just really kind of, I don't know, they were cool. And I do really like how the stone is very similar to the yarn choice. So I bought 5 of those for the cardigan. The pattern calls for 4, but these are a little smaller than what the pattern calls for, so I'm going to use 5. And I actually bought 6 buttons, so I do have an extra one, just in case. And then my Purl Soho purchases. So, like I said, I had Koigu in my hand the whole time, and they ended up back on the shelf. What's it here? I'm drinking some Yogi stress relief tea. It's called Kava Stress Relief because tomorrow is Monday, and it's my first day back at work after a 2-week vacation time. So, yeah, a little stressed about that, but I like this. This is it's a really hard flavor to describe. It's got cinnamon bark, ginger root, barley malt, kava root extract, which kava is a you can actually just take kava extract to for like a sleep aid. Cardamom seed, natural hazelnut flavor, and licorice. So yeah, it's kind of a spicy cinnamon. Yeah, it's a hard flavor to describe, obviously, but it's good. Anyway, stash. Sorry, this is those stupid hanger things. Okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. Yes, had Koigu in my hand the whole time, and then, you know, every time I go to Purl Soho, it's really the Habu textiles that gets me, and it did again. I love Habu textiles. If you're not familiar, it is a Japanese yarn company, and they make all kinds of funky yarns. They make a stainless steel wool blend, which I've knit before, and so that's a really cool fabric. It's so you would think that a stainless steel yarn would be kind of stiff and brittle maybe, but it does. It still has a fluidity to the fabric, but if you stretch it and pull it, it has memory to it. I'll have to show you the scarf at some point that I've made with the stainless steel yarn. But anyway, Habu makes like paper yarns, a lot of different linen and cotton blends with really funky textures. and just really interesting stuff. And I love their whole packaging. Uh, they do, like, every time I see them, I just think yarn nuggets, which is how Kristen describes some of the mini skeins she got on her podcast, her Yarngasm. The latest episode, Kristen talks about some swap mini skeins that she got, and they look like yarn nuggets. And that's always how I think of Habu textiles, is these little yarn nuggets that are just really funky and weird, and I wish I could have a basket of them on my table, even if I never knit with them. But I bought 2 of these. This is the Cotton Naramaki Slub, and it's a kind of a khaki green color. I don't know if it's going to show up too well, but yeah, that's kind of showing up how it is. And it's this thick and thin cotton slub. Very interesting, and it's nice. It's got a nice, it's very soft. And then along with that, I got, this is Alchemy Yarns, and this is their Silken Straw. So it's 100% silk, and this is the platinum colorway, and it's raw, you know, kind of a raw silk, so it feels very crispy. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's very crunchy and crispy right now, but once you wash it, it softens up like, you know, you would expect silk to feel. So it's kind of a very pearly color. And I mean, even the label of this yarn is glittery and beautiful, and I love their little company slogan, Yarns of Transformation. I mean, it's just very magical. So I'm combining these 3 things because so they have a sample at Purl Soho of the White Caps cowl, which is one of the Purl Bee patterns. So it's this, it's actually just a stockinette striped cowl, but with all the different textures of these yarns, it ends up looking really neat. So that's what I plan to make with these, and I really wanted to cast it on like immediately as soon as I got home, but I wanted to wait and show how pretty the skeins were before I tore into them. So I might have to start this very soon, even though I obviously have to finish some other things, but I really want to get this on the needles because I'm really interested to see how all of these textures work together. Yeah, so very excited about that. I think they are beautiful. And then the last thing that I will include in my stash enhancement for this week was just about 2 hours ago actually, I ordered a project bag from the Fawn Knits. So it's the fawnandthefox.etsy.com, and it's a shop owned by Lara, who has the Fawn Knits podcast, and I really enjoy her podcast, and I love her project bags. I've been coveting them and really wanting one, and I ordered one of her wool. She's been getting these really interesting one-of-a-kind wool felt pieces that are dyed kind of a yeah, like kind of a tie-dye style. Just really beautiful fabric, and so I had a hard time choosing out of her project or her shop update this week because she did have some print bags that I really liked. I really like all the prints that she uses, but the wool felt one, just, you know, I think part of it was that it is one of the one-of-a-kind ones, and I don't know, it's this gorgeous kind of teal seafoam, or seafoam, somewhere between teal and seafoam color, blue-green, and so I just ordered that today, and I'm really excited to get it in the mail. So that's that. And then I do, in my first episode, I had mentioned some of the other podcasts that I watch, and ones that slipped my mind were the Knitting Expat, and then Junk Yarn with Kemper, and Kemper mentioned something she has a big announcement in her next episode, so whatever that is, I'm very excited about it. And yes, I really enjoy the Knitting Expat podcast as well. And then, so tomorrow, Monday, August 31st, yes, I do have my first day of work after vacation, but then after work I get to go to a natural dye workshop, which is in Wassaic, New York. Wassaic is something I'll probably talk about kind of often. It is a small hamlet town. It's about 15 minutes up the road from where I live now, but I worked there as an intern last summer. It's an arts organization, and they have several historic buildings that they now use as artist studios, and a big exhibition space, which is in this old grain elevator, and they have an artist residency program, so if you are interested in any of those things, they have a website, wasaicproject.org. Just a really wonderful community of artists and creative people. And so there are my two friends, Christine and Meredith, have been tending a garden called the Natural Abundance Garden, and they have a website which I will put in the show notes. And so they are growing all kinds of plants to extract natural dyes from. So marigolds and and black beans and yeah, just all kinds of different plants that some of them are common plants like marigolds. I didn't even know. I mean, I haven't done any dyeing before, and I'm really interested in learning about natural dyes, and I didn't even know that you could get a natural dye from marigolds. So they are having a workshop tomorrow evening with, I think, some silk handkerchiefs that they have prepared for dyeing, and they're going to give a tour of the garden, and we get to dye our own silk handkerchiefs. Excuse me. So yes, I am very excited about that. And I think that's really about it for this episode. Still plugging away at my current projects and hoping to get towards the finish line on some of them within the next week or two. And I will definitely be showing you the results of the dye workshop next week. And until then, I hope you're enjoying your knitting, and thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you would like to stay updated. And again, thank you so much to Kristen for mentioning me on her podcast, and thank you to all of you who have commented and followed me on Instagram, and it's just really exciting. I'm just very grateful and very, very glad to be a part of the community. And I do want to start a Ravelry group. I think that's something that I will try to set up this week so that we can get some chatter threads going and stuff like that. So please take care and enjoy your knitting, and see you next week. Bye.